The investigation started off as normal. We were briefed on the investigation in Salem, Massachusetts to discover what was killing sharks in the area. It was me, Agent McKinnon, Agent Benowitz, and Agent Thorne investigating. We were to meet with one Dr. Aaron Howie and one Captain Maricus to take a vessel to investigate while undercover as NOAA agents. We left the Demos facility and arrived in Salem, Massachusetts a few hours later. Upon arrival, we quickly looked around. I noticed the ships were in remarkably good condition on the dock, in the event we needed to procure another vessel. We met with Dr. Howie and Captain Maricas and proceeded to the locations the sharks had been disappearing at. We found a tagged shark, half-eaten, by something notably large in size. We then received an SOS call from a fishing boat that we then proceeded to respond to. Upon arrival, it was a father and son that had some kind of serpent creature attached to their boat, riddled with bullet holes. I did not see any other fishing equipment, so I assumed they were illegally rifle hunting in a fishing boat. It was then that the real danger approached. I did not notice it at first because I had drawn my weapon to convince the father and son to get on our boat quickly. Meanwhile, Agent McKinnon released their catch into the water. Personal note, I drew my weapon in an attempt not to harm civilians, but because they needed to move quickly. They finally arrived on the boat, and the chase began. A much larger serpent creature started chasing after us, specifically the father. Because he had killed the smaller serpent creature, the parent was rightfully angry. As the chase began, Agent Thorne shot the father in the stomach. Agent Benowitz began treating the wound immediately and saved his life. We were fighting a serpent creature and ourselves at this point. At one point, I opened fire on Agent Thorne thinking that would sate the creature. Personal note 2. Demos rules of engagement dictate to never harm innocents. As far as I was concerned, Agent Thorne's actions were highly treasonous, and therefore she was now a threat to neutralize. The serpent creature got inside my head somehow, and it expressed in some strange way that Agent Thorne would not sate its bloodlust, only the father. I almost gave in, but Agent Benowitz reminded me of my duty, and I opened fire on the serpent creature instead. We eventually escaped to shore. Agent Benowitz had called for an ambulance for the father, and Agent McKinnon had called for Demos operatives to neutralize the creature. Upon returning to the Demos facility, with Dr. Howie in tow, she appears to have gills, not fully human, which is why we brought her with us. Demos agents took Agent Thorne away, and the mission ended. Conclusion. The serpent creature is a major threat when provoked, and in Salem, Massachusetts, it is likely to be easily provoked to protect itself. My recommendation would be to capture it and relocate it somewhere, along with any children or eggs it may have. As for Agent Thorne, whereabouts unknown, she was the bigger threat here. No matter what, protecting innocence is vital to what we do. Jack Napier, postscript. I have not had to fire on a colleague in some time, though the circumstances surrounding my previous interaction were vastly different. I had no choice but to kill Sergeant Huckleby because he was going to destroy the ship and every sailor inside. He had been drugged, see Jack Napier personnel file for details, and hypnotized in a similar fashion to what happened to me as a child. This time, Agent Thorne's actions were voluntary and of her own free will. I will accept whatever punishment comes my way from up high, but this was a combat zone and there was no easy choice to make here.
Agent Blair McKinnon, recording a log of events that transpired on duty today, October 14, 2024. I am recording immediately upon my return to the office in an attempt to preserve the memory of the events to the best of my ability before I lose any further detail. Myself and Agent Spensowitz, Napier, and Thorne were assigned to the Salem, Massachusetts investigation on the reports of strange things happening to sharks off the coast. We were given a cover by the department as NOAA scientists, out helping marine biologists track and tag sharks. We reached the pier and the boat, a vessel named Wave Dancer, fairly easily. On the drive in, the three of us, not driving, put our minds together in an attempt to surmise what manner of creature or illness had been rumored to have surfaced in the Salem's waters before, just sort of background of what we might be headed into. The information we found along the way was useful, but mostly irrelevant given the cover provided to us by the company and, frankly, the doctor's good work. We set sail towards the sharks after a brief safety check of the vessel. The tracker on the shark began pinging our ship about when we had reached the edge of a place called Martin's Beach. an area that Dr. Howie had recently seen a collection of her tagged sharks congregating in. Oh. I do wonder now if that's due to the serpent having devoured no small number of her sharks. The sea serpent had a mouth nearly 4 feet wide, and it made short work of the 12-foot shark we recovered. The beach, Martin's Beach, had come up in our research as a place that was once home to a hitherto presumably fake sea monster model that was displayed for a number of years before a storm washed the display away. So what I know now was likely our first brief encounter with the sea serpent occurred shortly after we spotted the shark we were tracking. The serpent, I think in the act of hunting its dinner, had slammed the shark into the bottom of the boat. The shock of which sent a couple of us to our knees and nearly sent Mr. Benzowitz overboard. The next thing we know, we can see our shark, the one we've been tracking for a while, just floating in the water. We hauled, well, they hauled the specimen onto the boat to examine, and Mr. Benzowitz was helping investigate the hole in the shark. He said that according to his measurements, the creature that had taken that bite out of the shark was easily 2 to 3 times larger than our boat. 2 to, yeah, well, at least. It was only a few moments later that the captain informed us that we were required to go assist on a distress call from a nearby ship. There was a man and his son on the water, engine dead, who needed assistance. We double-checked and made sure that the doctor had everything she needed for the sharks, for her research, and then rolled the creature back into the water and set sail for the stranded sailors. I was pretty immediately concerned that the creature we were hunting was hunting these fishermen. It was a fear deep in my gut, even before we saw what they had caught. Along the way, something had disturbed the doctor. Just as we approached the other boat, Agent Benzowitz pulled Thorne and I aside to inform us that he believed something was not wholly human about the doctor. He said he had seen some sort of markings, perhaps wounds or gills on her neck, and that he thought we should keep an eye on her. Now, all behavior of the doctor prior to this point had been very honest and open. She was kind and seemed to get along well with the captain. These reasons and others, such as her job and her degrees, indicated that it was likely safe to monitor her rather than risk failing our assigned investigation so we could apprehend her. I made sure to keep a close eye on her from that point forward, but as a team we agreed it was best to continue the primary objective, especially given that we had a civilian captain for the ship and fishermen who were going to be relying on us and the safety of our ship to get them back to shore. Things do start to get a bit hazy here. Everything happened quickly, and it feels like it was really all at once, which is why I'm recording this, to process aloud. So, first I saw the man, the fisherman. Mostly because he was waving a rifle a lot like mine in the air as he signaled for us. And I could only assume that it was because he had recently used that rifle. And next I saw the unidentified creature, the sea serpent, on a hook of the fishing boat. And immediately it was obvious that the creature that they had caught and the creature we were hunting were one and the same. Until Benzowitz said that one was too small to have killed our shark. And from here, really, my mind was racing. Benzowitz continued to note that the rest of the shark we left behind in the water was gone. And I'm trying to get the boarding plank set so the child could safely cross on to our boat before the serpent's upon us. And the fisherman is busy telling us about how excited he is about this catch and raving about how he's going to be rich. And meanwhile, I can see this catch of his dripping blood into the water, riddled with bullet holes, that far more than really, I mean, we definitely didn't have enough ammo to take out anything larger than the one he had already caught. And it's dripping blood into the water, putting out a siren's call to any and every other predator nearby. And frankly, it's tied to his ship. It's too big. It's on a I don't know, one of those big fishing reels on the back of a boat. Anyways, it's huge, and it's a boat that we would otherwise have to tow behind us to shore, and we're sure at this point that there's something monstrous in the water. Next, someone upset the fisherman. Probably telling the man that he can't keep the fish. Maybe. It might have been me, honestly. Or maybe I was just agreeing with Agent Napier. Anyway, the man gets angry. And we don't have time for this. We don't have time to argue about whether or not he can have the fish. We don't have time to tow his ship. We're moments away from a life or death situation. There's blood in the water and a creature large enough to swallow sharks whole. And so I reached across the gap between our ships and simply cut the smaller of the serpents loose from his line and let it fall into the water. Agent Napier tried to smooth this over with the civilian, but the man grew more irate. I hauled the boy onto the ship, across the plank, safely, and the man crossed onto our ship as well in an attempt to fight with Napier about the fish I had just released. I trusted the agent to handle the gentleman because I was taking care of the child and trying to keep an eye on the doctor just in case. As I glanced into the water once again, I saw a big serpent, an eye, nearly the size of a football field, it felt like, just sort of glowing beneath the surface. And it's only yards away from our boat, and big. I mean, really terrifyingly large, and all of its attention was focused on me. It spoke in my mind then, in strange way of communicating as it was trying to convey, I think, that it wanted a blood price for the death of its kin. Agent Thorne, immediately upon the beast making its demand in my mind, and so I can only assume that means it spoke in her mind as well, reached for her weapon and headed towards the fisherman. I tried to stop her, but I was too slow. I couldn't get a good grip on her, and I saw one of the other agents attempt to stop her as well. I think it was Morty, but it was really chaotic, and before anyone could truly respond to act, fact, she'd shot the man in the stomach. I tried to shield the child, but there's only so much you can do on a small research vessel, and the child began to scream, and I believe this is when Agent Napier pulled his weapon and pointed it at Agent Thorne. It was quite hectic, and I'll admit to being a bit shaken by the actions of my coworkers, nearly as much as I was shaken by the sight of the sea serpent. And so really I'm not fully sure anymore exactly how it went or in what order. But it seems unlikely, right? That he would point his weapon at a fellow agent? But then again, she had just shot a civilian and tried to feed him to a sea serpent. Anyway, gosh, I guess I glanced away because I remember I spotted the doctor, who really seemed to be in a great deal of pain, curled up on the floor of the ship, of the boat, I guess. She looked like she was in pain, clutching her own chest, and in that moment, I specifically remember because I was able to confirm she did have gills, and it was just, it's not important. Agent Benzowitz immediately pushed forward to shelter the man from Agent Thorne, and began working to save his life and stabilize him so we could get him to shore and to a doctor, while Agent Napier yelled at Agent Thorne. Meanwhile, she tried to make some case for sending the man overboard to feed the serpent, and the serpent in question rose out of the water in an attempt to crush our ship or pull us down into the water. That was when the captain started speeding towards shore. I'm sure as fast as he could. It was no easy task to stay out of the way of the serpent that clearly wanted us to stop. And I'm sorry, just I handed Agent Napier a flare gun in the hopes that either the heat or the chemicals might damage the serpent's eye or burn its mouth, something to slow it down so we could get to safety. But I'm a better shot with a rifle, and so I didn't spend a lot of time with the flare gun. I think Agent Thorne tried scraping blood off of the edge of the ship, the fisherman's blood off the edge of the ship, to try and appease the serpent. That didn't work, and she then she threatened Morty over the fisherman again, and I fired my rifle into the eye of the beast. I hit it at least once, and I know that Napier fired flares and bullets, but it didn't seem to be doing much to the serpent. It continued trying to slam into our ship, chasing us. And after a little bit of brainstorming in the moment with Agent Benzowitz, while he tried to continue to save the fisherman's life, we decided that perhaps the silver bullets that he had at hand would be useful, and attempted to fire those at the creature. it was effective. It did seem to deter the beast, which is something that should be made known to the archives and R&D. After we escaped the beast, I think Agent Napier didn't point his gun at Thorn until she threatened Morty. I think she pointed her gun at Morty first to try and convince him to let her throw the fisherman overboard. And then Agent Napier pointed his own gun at her, told her to stand down, and I think he fired his weapon at her. I think it was his gun pointed at her that finally convinced her to leave the fisherman alone and to leave Morty, Agent Benzowitz, alone. Even though she continued trying to make some argument about more lives would be saved if we just killed the fisherman. And for a moment, I think she managed to sway Agent Napier, and I thought we were going to have to stop them both from trying to throw the man overboard. A very tense conversation ensued, and I think it was about this time that the silver bullet connected, and as the serpent fell briefly into the water, we were able to convince both Napier and Thorn that we could make it back to shore safely with all of our people still aboard. We did escape the beast and return to shore, where we were able to make contact with Deimos and have them send out a situation control team. Prior to releasing the smaller serpent from the fishing boat, I was able to capture a few photos of it. I will be sure to include those in my written report. I'm honestly still a bit shaken by how this investigation unfolded. The fact that Thorn could have fatally wounded that civilian and did so in clear view of his young son was horrifying in its own right. But for Napier to then return fire on Thorn? And what's worse is that after all of that effort to save the fisherman, Napier then agreed to try and sacrifice the civilian. I don't know what got into them. Perhaps the presence of the serpent in their minds was a more powerful force than what I experienced. Because it certainly didn't stop trying to call us to act in its favor until the silver bullet. The company made their stance on Miss Thorne's action very clear, and while it was startling to witness, I think it set a fine tone for our future. Additionally, I'd like to note that I do not wish to work with Miss Thorne ever again. I can't trust that such a person would not be a danger to myself or my team, especially given her likelihood of harming civilians. It appears to me that her mind was not strong enough to resist the will of the creature, and to me, that means she can't be trusted to work with the interest of Deimos at heart. I also would like to express a concern for the new Agent Napier. While I understand the impulse he acted upon in a heated moment where he was trying to protect Agent Benzowitz and the civilian man, discharging a weapon at a fellow agent was an extreme course of action, considering no attempt had been made to disarm or restrain Agent Thorne. Perhaps a course on de-escalation and conflict management is in order. Some sort of training. I don't think that Agent Napier is a lost cause the way that I feel that Agent Thorne is. But I certainly think some sort of training or education is necessary before he goes out on another mission. Right. The serpent, the agents, the photos. Yes, I think that's everything. I'll confer with my fellow agents on their understanding of the events that transpired, and I will update my report with a written addendum. Thank you.